Hi everyone and welcome to Music Ally Focus with me, Music Ally's managing editor, Joe Sparrow. And this week we are sharing a podcast episode from our other podcast, The Price of Music, with you again here on Focus. If you don't follow The Price of Music, I urge you to do so right now. The link is beneath this one. But we're doing it so for a specific reason, because we went back and interviewed the team behind EcoRecord, which is the German-based company which is making ecologically more friendly vinyl records. We first spoke to them here on Music Ally Focus about 1.5 to 2 years ago, just when they were launching the product and it was newly emerging into the world. Since then, they've used this technology to make Coldplay's records, Ed Sheeran's records, Lorde's records, and it's being adopted as a new format that looks and feels and sounds just like the old format, but is better for the environment. So I went across Berlin to have a chat with them again, and you can listen to the whole interview right here. Stu, I'm going to be dispatched shortly across Berlin to chat to some people who are making a new revolutionary type of vinyl. First of all, let me ask you, Stu, are you a vinyl person?
Honestly, no.
No.
I haven't got round to getting a record player again in the latest boom, which, given that the boom's going for 19 years, is a little bit... But yeah, I don't know. I own vinyl. I have vinyl, but I don't really play it. I'm more digital nowadays.
It's a sort of a big niche focus, isn't it? It's a bit like, I don't know, it's somewhere between collecting and sport, isn't it? Like, you really need to want to do it for a certain reason. It's either because you're a purist or you like collecting, or there's just something that scratches your itch about it specifically, isn't there? Otherwise, a lot of people just stream it. I think vinyl accounts for, is it about 5% of the overall recorded music sales now, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's that's measurable in the billions, isn't it?
Well, also, I think if you're for individual artists and labels, like, it's a meaningful source of revenue for a lot of them. It's more than 5%, isn't it? So I think it's on a macro level, it can be a really meaningful part of your income, especially if you're independent. And of course, if you're Taylor Swift, you're making a lot of money from vinyl. She's the top LP every year, it seems, at the moment.
Well, that's because she sells 5 copies of it in different color variants to her super fans. So you can just multiply a normal superstar's vinyl sales by 5 with her, I think. But of course, like, when we talk about, in as we've all just experienced a massive heat wave, the climate emergency, we are, as part of that, we like buying vinyl, those of us who buy vinyl. And, it is, if you buy traditional vinyl, it is a 180 gram disc of PVC, which comes from oil extracted from the ground. And there is an ecological issue with that, isn't there, as well? And the company who I'm going to go speak to shortly across in very glamorous environment, by the way, in Berlin, their office, which is the Bertelsmann's Group main office, which is the huge media conglomerate, they have a beautiful office, which is a bit like an art gallery that happens to have meeting rooms in it, and it's right next to Museum Island in Berlin and overlooks the huge cathedral there. And they own a company called Sonopress, which is a huge physical media manufacturer. And the reason I'm speaking to them is because a couple of years ago, they produced a new form of vinyl record called EcoRecord, which is made a little bit like CDs are made, through injection molding plastic into a mold rather than pressing hot discs of PVC into a record. And the ecological angle on this, or the argument goes, is they use 85% less energy, because you don't need to heat the material, so they have huge savings on heat. And also they can be made out of the kind of plastic that you make water bottles out of. So you can take, as Coldplay did with their last album, you can take plastic bottles that you can take out of the sea, for instance, you can process them and then use them to be made into new records. These things are all incremental, of course. Like, getting bottles out of the sea and turning them into records takes energy as well. But there are savings here. And the idea is that the records themselves can become recycled as well. So when you really start hating that Coldplay record, you can chop it up and make it into a new record. Not that I recommend you should do that. The other interesting thing about this is that EcoRecord, having launched a couple of years ago, Coldplay, Ed Sheeran, Lorde, some significant releases have come out on this format. It sounds good and looks good. So I'm going to go and chat to them now and see what they've learned from 2 years of producing these alternative types of record with the energy savings, and what the future is going to hold. Stu, what could possibly persuade you to come back round to the side of vinyl? Would exciting recycled materials do that for you?
Maybe. I mean, I'm not doing it because of the climate aspect, but I think it would certainly help. Like if I knew that I wasn't, buying something that had been hurting the planet, or at least was hurting the planet less. But yeah, I think I just need to have a midlife crisis where I go and buy loads of vinyl and have a lovely.
Oh yeah, I think you're obliquely referring to me recently having bought a lot of vinyl there, aren't you?
Well, no. I mean, I'm not against vinyl. I just haven't had the space in the house, the quality of the record player, and the time and money. So I think as I get, hopefully, some of those things, if the world doesn't burn and I, I'm not out of work from AI, exactly. That's when I'll schedule my vinyl revival, and I'll send it up by another % every year, perhaps.
Okay, right. Well, let's see if this interview can persuade you otherwise. So I'm going to go and speak to a nice man called Sven Deutschmann now, overlooking the cathedral in the middle of Berlin. Well, thanks, Joe and Stu. This is Joe again, across the other side of Berlin now, and I'm in probably the fanciest part of the city. I'm standing right next to the Humboldt Forum, which is a huge old palace. I can see just over the road there the Berliner Dom, which is the enormous and beautiful cathedral. To my right is the Fernsehturm, which is the sort of high, pointy thing that you'll recognize from photographs. Just over there is the Altes Museum, which is the old art gallery. Just over there is the Deutsche Historische Museum, which is the history museum. And right next to that is a beautiful building which houses the headquarters of the Bertelsmann Group. The Bertelsmann Group is the huge German media conglomerate that owns Sonopress, which is the company that makes these EcoRecords. So I'm going to mosey over there now and try and hustle my way past the intimidating looking guard on the door and speak to Sven Deutschmann about the EcoRecords. So I'm back here with Sven Deutschmann. Great to see you. We spoke first, I think, 2 years ago, just as this product was launching, and you've come a long way since then. So I'd like to sort of just catch up really on what's happened in the last 2 years. So in the last 2 years, this new technology's come out. What are you most satisfied by in that time?
First of all, I think within these 2 years, a lot has happened. And starting with one machine, the first big releases, now we are running 4 machines globally. And this is further to increase. And this shows there's a really huge acceptance of the format by all stakeholders, by the artists, by the labels, but also by the fans, the super fans. And it's fantastic to see this in operational business.
And what has the reception been like? Because when you first described this to me, I thought, well, this is great. You've found a way to reduce the use of heat and carbon footprint. It sounds good. It looks good. It's one of those things that seems to be you think it would be an easy sell to people. So what have people said to you? I'm thinking artists, labels, fans. What's the reception been like of this EcoRecord?
First of all, we were experiencing a lot of skepticism. It was a lot of unknowns. It was like changing the behavior and changing the product, the method. It was like a mountain, and climbing the mountain in the very beginning was like a challenge, because the questions were like moving targets. And in the very beginning, it was like challenging. How do you realize that the footprint is coming down so drastically? So the first question was really concentrating on the carbon footprint with all aspects, like on the material, on the process. And is it possible in the process to reduce by more than 80-85% in the process, like reducing, which is no longer fossil-based energy on natural gas one hand, but also on reducing anything which is like cooling water, steam, energy. This was huge. And I would say this was phase 1 to convince and to prove by external partners that this is real. And then once this was a proven thing that the carbon footprint can be drastically reduced, then it was like a moving target. Okay, then let's talk about the features. Is the product as stable as everybody knew the vinyl record for 75 years? Is it as stable? Is the quality the same? Is it like long lasting or something there in the background which we do not know? So it was like, in one word, we had moving targets from months to months to months, and we had to address each of them and not forget about also the pricing point and all of these features. But we've taken this way up the mountain, and I would say we are close to the peak now to really come to the next phase and really rolling this product out globally.
I mean, for those of you who are listening, the difference really between the traditional vinyl and this is that these EcoRecords are sort of injection molded, as opposed to being pressed, and you don't need the huge amounts of heat that are needed with the traditional vinyl technique to press the record. So there's enormous savings in terms of heat energy, but also the plastic that's used is different and can be recycled or used from recycled plastic. So that's briefly where the savings are. And as you said, it's traditional vinyl, the PVC vinyl, is 75, 80 years old. It's a very old technology. And you're asking, essentially, people who've been doing this for a long time to change from this one thing to a new thing. Did you find, you were saying there, a series of moving targets. Change is hard, right? When people go from a thing that they're used to, a system that they're used to another. What was the main sort of pushback or the main challenge asking people to switch over from this one to this one?
I'd say it's everybody in this industry, but also in the beautiful background of music labels, is everybody wants to see a certain product in a certain category. So once we started with this and really promoting this under the brand name of EcoRecord, one of the, I do not want to call it a pushback, but it was like putting it in a certain category. And in the first instance, it was put directly into the category a sustainable product. And so it was seen like, okay, if somebody asked for a greener alternative or for a lower footprint, then everybody in the supply chain would open up the drawer and say like, hey, we have an alternative. This is EcoRecord. But honestly, even the Music Climate Pact was around since 2021. It is not that 100% of each project globally is seen as a sustainable project only. There's a lot of demand for do the reorder in the same way it was 25 years ago, do the same cutting here, use the black material and others. And so it was not like the majority of products is seen in the category of sustainability. And once we were like perceived EcoRecord as a sustainable product, this was only reflecting a certain percentage, let's call it like below 10% of the market. So therefore, on a lot of projects, we did not have the access in the first instance. Only when we changed from the attitude, from the approach into the direction, no, this is not only in the category, in a niche category of sustainability, it's like a real standard product. Then it became obvious, yeah, we should be perceived as EcoRecord as a normal standard, maybe the new standard even. And then we got the access to the bigger projects, first instance, but second is also that it becomes like a very normal project oriented as another alternative.
So it's sort of, perception and trust around what it is. And of course, let's talk about the big artists that have used it in the last couple of years. You've had Coldplay releasing their last album in large numbers on EcoRecord. It wasn't just a limited run, it was a lot of records being pressed. You had Ed Sheeran as well and Lorde. I can imagine that these artists are, of course, people who really care about the environment and they're interested in it from that environmental perspective, but they're also huge artists who like making money and selling a lot of records, right? So first of all, can we touch on the Coldplay one? Because I remember you pointed out when we first spoke about it, we were talking about, how wouldn't it be great if you could get a big artist like Coldplay to do it? And little did I know that you had actually signed that contract, but you couldn't tell me. So can you, now you can tell us, can you tell me a bit about that? Coldplay and their team, of course, huge global artists, but very interested in doing the right thing ecologically. So what was it like working with them? And how closely did they look at the technology and sort of think about it in those terms?
This is really amazing to talk about this. First of all, this has impressed ourselves absolutely and very much about their attitude of environmental aspects, because it was not only limited to talking about an alternative kind of LP record. It was going beyond. It was like that it's like a entire system which is behind in taking care of each and every aspect of the product, of the supply chain, starting even from that they have invested in certain equipment, the river cleaning equipment. They have certain boats which clean the rivers in Indonesia, in South America and others. And Chris Martin was giving interviews in late night shows in the US explaining what they did. And this is absolutely amazing to clean the rivers before plastic touches the ocean. But even if plastic is made its way to the ocean, then there's a Dutch-based NGO which is cleaning the oceans, the ocean cleanup. And these contacts to companies, NGOs, and the band, like the management of Coldplay, and speaking directly to them, this was impressive overall to learn that they are really taking care of this.
And of course, on the front of those Coldplay records that were pressed with EcoRecord, there's a sticker saying, hey, this is made out of 9 or 10 plastic bottles, which is an amazing thing to think about, isn't it? So you've got artists like Coldplay who are very openly focused on doing this environmental work. You've got other artists like Ed Sheeran and Lorde who, I care about the environment, but they perhaps don't have boats cleaning rivers in Indonesia, which is fine. But of course, to them, this is still a high selling point, isn't it? Again, they're balancing scale, global scale, with wanting to find an alternative. How important is it to get these big artists showing that it works, the system works, and they prefer this format in terms of helping convince other people that this format works? It's better for the environment.
It's a mix. It's a balance. If this would be only the big artists, then I would say this is seen as okay, maybe top-notch selling volume-based big projects. Of course, this is, I would say, the essence of the industry. But not to forget, music is always like nobody knows who's a big music star in 5 years or 10 years. And we see a lot of independence. We see like a movement which is even in the comparison, at least as, I would say, deep through impressive like the big labels and artists. And look at the independence. Sometimes the independents even take this view on sustainability even more serious than everybody else. So there are some labels, and we work together with like K7 and there are labels and working with for manufacturing, which is so impressive because they are dedicated to really take care, like in reduction in carbon footprint, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, and really go through this thing and take it, I would say, so serious that they are like a closed system in reducing the footprint. So therefore, it's a mix, having the big artists, the big projects, but also the independents. And even this goes beyond pop music. We've seen projects, even with house music, rapper. We have classical music now. Classical music on an EcoRecord, you would not expect it. But I would say it's not to be underestimated how far-reaching the interest is in reducing the carbon footprint all over the place.
I'm really interested in the independent labels element because when I speak to people in the music industry, you look at the people who are, driving this change forward. It's often it's often groups of independent labels working together. You mentioned the Music Climate Pact, and there's a lot of people involved, but there are very, very passionate people who believe in a better future, and they're often working for independents because they have a little bit more ability to make decisions and make changes. So when you approach them with, I'm just trying to think of the mindset of like a K7 or an independent like that. When you approach them with the technology, what are their main sort of points of interest in terms of adopting it and using it? Obviously, the they can check the reduction calculations for the energy and those kind of things. But what are their other concerns? Because they're printing shorter runs of records, maybe for niche markets, or their fans might want different colorways or something. So when you're introducing a new product and trying to make people feel comfortable with it, what are the independents looking for?
I'd say this is a kind of identity. So what we've seen is, and sometimes the artists are the best ambassadors for the product, even better than any marketing agency or communication agent who's doing, I would say, promotion on this. The artists themselves, I would say this is amazing. We've seen the recent release of it's a UK-based artist, Macy Peters. And Macy Peters, the last album was just released a couple of weeks ago. And we've done it in a new methodology. We call this, it's kind of a splatter technology. We call this Inkplosion. And the artist, Macy Peters, she was taking a 60-second video, which was then released on Instagram, on X, on all the social media formats. And she was telling by herself all the advantages of the product. It was like the best ambassador we as Sonopress could imagine of. She was telling all the stories behind, like reducing footprint, no longer PVC-free products, using PET, with all the examples. And she was, I would say, the best salesperson in this moment for our product. And this is just one example. We see the same with Supergrass for Record Store Day with the release. We see this with a lot of independents. And once somebody is convinced he's the best ambassador for the product, it's much more, I would say, serious, realistic than if we would do this. We as a manufacturing company, everybody would say like, okay, if Sonopress is telling positively about the product, of course, what else should they do? But if the artists are telling this is so convincing for everybody. And this is like a movement, I would say. And the first word was identity. It's about their identity. They love it, they like the quality, and they are the best ambassadors for the product.
And to go to the fan end of things, one of the interesting things about these EcoRecords is that in their natural state, if you like, they are transparent. So they come transparent as standard, but they can also be any other color. And they have the new sort of ink splatter look ones, which are really interesting as well. So you have all the variety that people want from a visual perspective. I want to talk to you about the audio perspective, because I've listened to a bunch of these records, and to me they sound great. They sound just the same as a PVC vinyl record. But I'm also aware that the audiophile community of consumers, people who are very, I'm going to say that they must have better ears than me, because they can hear things in records that I can't hear. But they're very exacting about quality and sound. What are they saying? I mean, I looked on Discogs the other day, right, for the Lorde release, and again, you've got people there saying, "Hey, this sounds really good," and these are Discog people who are very, particular about this. What are people saying about the audio quality, and how important is that when you talk to fans and labels and things?
This is, I would say, the most interesting part of the whole story. Because in the very beginning, when the driver was look at the carbon footprint, music climate pact and other things, everybody was concentrating so much on these aspects, but everybody knew that the underlying reality is we have to match the quality. And even if the quality would have been like 5% less, 10% less or so, this product would never make it in the mass market. So therefore, this was one of our key emphases to look at. Quality, number one. And then it was amazing, because when we started, we saw that like surface noise is almost not there. It's much better than on the traditional vinyl. And there are more aspects, like from the groove structure, from the appearance of certain things, no warping, and the cleanness, the centricity of the whole thing. Centricity is a major thing also. And then on the material base of the cleanness and the structure of the material as such. So there are a lot of aspects. And then in this, I would call it the second phase, it was like, let's prove that we are as good as a traditional vinyl. But when we came closer to the end of this phase 2 to prove it's the same quality, we found out, it might be even better. And then it got really interesting, because then this was like a proof of concept where we're talking to the experts. And who is experts? Yes, people from the music industry themselves, of course. Second is also those with equipment. So we made our way to the big shows, like the high-end show in Munich and this year in Vienna. It was like going to people who are manufacturing turntables. And we're talking about turntables in the range of more than 100,000 euros per unit. So they are really keen on having the best quality. And then when I talked about the ambassadors for sustainability, which have been the artists themselves, now we are talking about ambassadors for the product in the hardware industry. And we organized here in Berlin a couple of weeks ago a listening session with one of the Koryphäen, we would say in Germany, is like Max Schlund. He's known as one of the experts of the high-end quality hardware equipment. And he was talking about the product. We were impressed more than everybody else because he was speaking about all the positive features of the product. And it's really amazing. And one of these initiatives was also driven by that we did like a certain test run. And I've brought it with me.
Which we have here, yeah.
We can have a look. This is what we call sound check. And this is one of the classic albums of Kruder and Dorfmeister. And what we did is we did exactly the same cut, a lacquer cut, in comparison on traditional vinyl with EcoRecord.
So what we have here is a fold-out vinyl with 3 records in it, and it's the same record cut the traditional way, the EcoRecord way, and the vinyl way.
We have like in the mastering bond also to see the comparison between DMM cut and lacquer cut.
And what is the difference for people who don't know between DMM and lacquer cut?
Yeah, DMM cut was introduced in the 70s by Teldec. This was instead of cutting the master, the music, into a soft lacquer, relatively soft layer, it was into metal. And the direct metal mastering was, like 50 years ago or so, intended to have a cleaner version, no pre-echo, no post-echo effects on the record. And it has made it to the mass industry. And still, a lot of people believe DMM could be a very, very future-oriented element of the industry. We agree. So DMM cut is certainly something you should have in mind as one of the alternatives. Very clean, with all the effects positively, like no pre-echo and no post-echo and other effects. This was why it was developed years ago. On the other hand, certain music is definitely preferred by a lot of people in the industry to use the classical lacquer cut. And this is why we wanted to see the same lacquer cut in the lathe taking through then for EcoRecord and which is PET in comparison to vinyl, the traditional. So same stamper, same cut. It's a real one-on-one comparison. And then we let the experts listen and see, like, can you detect, is there a difference? If so, which one has which effects and which effects on the EcoRecord and on the other one?
What do they say? So you play, you've got these, you can side by side play on these 100,000 euro record players, of course. So they can play them side by side. These are people who are let's say the experts at listening and detecting these sound artifacts and surface noise and things. What did they think?
This was exactly the purely, I would say, most fascinating result, because they could detect and they probably have better ears than myself or others. So we were a little bit in a very suspenseful mood when we listened to them, and it was like all across. They loved it. Then with the sound, with the frequency, even they are talking in a different language. So I cannot repeat everything of this. Sometimes they were talking about, like, there's more depth, there's more room, there's more space. It's like if people are doing their comments on a soccer game, the experts have a different language, and we are listening and watching, and here it's the same. They have a different language to really understand each other. And it was fascinating to listen to it. And this was exactly the moment where we said, like, whoops, if the result is now the EcoRecord is perceived as a better product by a lot of people in the industry, what do we do with this information? And we decided to keep very quiet. We always say, like, we don't want to sell the product with the argument of more quality, better quality. We just say, leave it to those who are buying the product, those who love the product, those who are listening to the music. They shall decide for themselves. So we just would say it's on par, it's the same quality. Some may say they love it more with less surface noise, but we leave this out. So we don't use it as a sales argument. It's more like the experience that we want to share.
Let's look forward a bit then, because we're now in a place where, okay, the technology works, it's being adopted by artists of all levels. How do you sort of judge the success? You've talked about it, downplaying it and sort of saying, look, it's a valid alternative. You want to scale the business up. You've now got 4 machines running. I believe you've got one in North America as well now. And I guess you're going to keep increasing that. What is the sort of point where you see it becoming more normal in terms of it being part of the normal industry? Is it when you see, I don't know, another huge artist like Taylor Swift releases her records with it? Or is it when you have lots of independent artists sort of releasing short runs? What does that success look like in terms of normalization of it?
This is, I think, the next stage, the next phase for the product, for the EcoRecord, also with a global rollout. First of all, I'd like to mention also consistency for the product, for the artist, in considering also their back catalog. With the experience of Coldplay, for example, it was from their point of view, making it to the number 1 in the charts, on Billboard charts, after the release 2 years ago in autumn. It was the decision was taken to change all of the back catalog into EcoRecord. And this is absolutely a major move, because the back catalog of each and every artist is normally unchanged. So if some album was released 20 years ago in a certain format, it will never change. It will always be the same color. It will be black. It will be on vinyl, so on and on. Nobody will even touch the cut again, or the lacquer cutting, or how it was done, the stampers. Everybody would keep it in the same state. Here, it was showing the first change. Today, all of the back catalog of Coldplay albums, 10 albums, are all manufactured in EcoRecord by ourselves now. And also, even more, they changed it from a former black vinyl into now a transparent PET-based EcoRecord. This is amazing to see this, and it's so consistent, because this was not a one-time shot with a nice marketing. No, it was really the belief that the product is the right product as a physical product, number 1. Number 2 is, I would say that for the industry, now the rollout is really a planned version, that we really roll it out on a global level with our own capacities, mainly focusing in Europe. Yes, this is where our strengths are lying. If we look at the North American market, like you mentioned, our machine that we have installed in Charlotte, we see that North America with the US is the biggest market for media in the world. By far, biggest growth rates. It's like multi-million LPs manufactured and also sold each year in North America. So we took the decision to have this as an open format. This should not be a closed format only being provided by certain companies or by a few companies. We believe this should be open to each and every territory with production. And this is why we took the decision to make it available as a licensed product to other companies. So we have taken the decision, yes, we are open to sell the equipment, build new equipment, and this is what we right now do. So we are building machines with partners, with experts in machine building and engineering, and we are realizing and building up the machines. Number 1, it's like a certain pre-time has to be required, like 6 months, but each 6 months we can install the next line, and we are making these lines available to other companies. Number 2 is we bring the know-how, how it's done, to other companies as well. So we open up our secret treasures to make it available and to train other people, other engineers, other staff globally to do the same quality of PET-based records all across the globe. And we signed recently an agreement with Connective, formerly known as Technicolor. Mm-hmm. And Technicolor has started with the LP record production a couple of years ago for North America with tons, I would say. So it's really a battery of a lot of vinyl presses. And they are as convinced as we are that the PET injection-molded based principle for EcoRecords is part of the future of the industry. And we will install the equipment later this year and then make all the technology available. And then together with Connective, we'll provide EcoRecords for the North American market. Having said this is not limited to one company and one territory. We will open this also up for other territories. So this is why we are reaching out to Far East Asia, like it can be China, it can be Korea, South Korea, and it can be also Japan.
Okay. And so the Music Climate Pact, which you mentioned earlier, there's very aggressive carbon reduction goals for aiming for 2030, so 4 years away. And of course, we've talked about the reduction in carbon use in several ways for EcoRecord production. So when you look, you're talking there about rolling this production out around the world. There are other I don't want to say competitors, but there are other formats of vinyl alternatives that have eco savings using recycled offcuts of existing PVC or using processed cooking oil to make a sort of alternative. So you've got all these alternative approaches. When you look forward at the whole record pressing industry in sort of 5 years' time, do you think it will be a case that the traditional PVC is going to be starting to phase out and be replaced by these alternative, more carbon-friendly alternatives in a sort of general sense?
It's a yes and it's a no. So it's a difficult one. And to be honest, there is a wishful thinking, of course, also on carbon footprint elements in the whole thing, but there's also the reality check. And first of all, never to forget also the industry has put massive investments into the old technology in the years between 2019 and 2023, 2022. So these massive investments should never be forgotten. And everybody wants to fill their machines. And I think this is exactly why the traditional old technology of compression molding, of having not the injection molding, but the old compression molding of the PVC cake is looking for alternatives. And you mentioned the bio or the oil-based alternatives. Okay, this is all complementary, and everybody, I would say it's great to see all the initiatives, because these initiatives haven't been there in the last 75 years. And so I think we should embrace it. We should say thank you for the companies to think about alternatives in the material. But then, of course, this old natural gas-based steam process is still there. So they might, I would say, address some of the elements in the old way of manufacturing, but not each and every in one goal and run. So therefore, other alternatives, I would say, long term, they will definitely not succeed with still using a PVC-based material, number one, still use steam-based technology in the old compression molding technique. But as the investments have been made, I would say nobody should expect that this is all going to change within the next 4 years until 2030. This would be, I would say, like a dream or a nightmare for some. So this is not going to happen. So maybe even longer than 10 years, and everybody keeps fingers crossed that the vinyl records, the LP records, the EcoRecord is still around in 10 years. I'm very positive about this, by the way. But I see this is a longer run. It's about investments. It's about convincing people, consumers, how does it change? So I see more like a very smooth transition. I see a transition which is based, yes, it can be within the next 3 years with more investments, but it can take up to 10, 15 years. And there's no issue with this. Why shouldn't it take longer? I think each initiative to improve. The footprint is seen positive, number one. Quality-wise, investment-wise, I think this is a very smooth and very complementing process which we are seeing.
Okay, final question then. We talked at the beginning about looking back to the last 2 years and what you were most pleased with and satisfied by. If you look over this 10 to 15 year time frame in front of us, what do you think, what would be some key successes that would sort of feel like you're making the progress that you think you should be with the EcoRecord?
Looking ahead and to have a little bit of vision, it's like, first of all, it was absolutely needed, necessary to implement the injection molding process for the industry, because this is, I think, exactly the bridge for the future and giving a lot of more possibilities, opportunities. Number one, on the material, on the recycling thing, on the circular economy, using recycled material for 100% of bottles and others. I think this is absolutely the right timing in bringing it forward. The second thing is, like if we look at the production methodology, electrical injection molding machines are absolutely state-of-the-art, and we're just in the beginning of the possibilities. What we can imagine is we can have in-mold labeling, which is directly embedded. We can have, if customers and artists dream of like having picture disc or so, we can have in-line molded printed versions of this, and we're working on this, by the way. We have seen also with liquid ink, which can be injected into the transparent base material, we can have effects which are so nice. And I remember 2 years ago you asked for, is it possible to have like a silver or a gold? And I was smiling. I said like, yeah, theoretically, but once we talk about the silver pigments, it can be tricky with the sound quality. Yeah. I can share with you the news. The latest thing we will release very soon will be based on a silver and a gold. And it's impressive to see the gold version, like a shiny, almost shiny gold of a record. It's fantastic. I brought a sample to you. I will show you after this when we're talking, and you will see it's possible now without any reduction or limitation of the sound quality. And this is by liquid elements in the injection molded PET material. So sharing this is, I think we're just seeing the first light of what is possible in the next 5 years. We will see much more in this process of injection molding, and we're just in the beginning.
Can we see the gold or the silver one now? I'm very excited, you know. Oh, here we go. Okay.
I think this is a gold one. So if you open that, this is
okay. It's an exciting moment. Oh wow! Look at that.
How smooth the surface is. Shiny like gold.
Gosh, it looks like real gold. Wow, yeah, that's great. Okay, no, that's very impressive. It looks like, you know, they put that gold record on one of the, I think the Voyager spaceship and sent it to the very outreaches of the solar system. It looks a little bit like that.
It is similar like this. So this is fantastic. And this is just our engineers. Whenever they have a free time or so, they play around with new possibilities. Implosion is the other one. Yeah. And this is like a splatter one, but it's very smooth individual characters on this. And it's the beginning of everything.
This is great. Well, last time we spoke, I mentioned Coldplay maybe releasing records. This time I mentioned Taylor Swift. So next time we meet up, we'll see if that prediction also came true, folks. And if we do see Taylor Swift's gold records with EcoRecords. So exciting stuff. Thanks ever so much, Sven. And yeah, we're excited to hear where this goes. And yeah, thanks for sharing all this with us.
Yeah, very welcome. See you next time. Thank you.